I don't tend to go for emotionally satisfying and optimistic, but impending doom is too far in the other direction. Can you accept a new beginning? I don't know, can you? As for thriller movies, no thank you. I'm bad at visual media. Hello everybody, it's Sylvie. Welcome or welcome back to Tarot Magpie. I hope you're doing all kinds of good. Today I'm doing a tag. I'm doing the Tarot through movie genres, I think it's called, by Quinn at Lucid Moon, who created this. They also tagged me in this. It's a very, very fun tag looking at different movie genres and kind of assigning tarot decks accordingly. I have to confess though, I am not much of a movie person. I'm just bad at watching things, especially like new or new to me at least. Anything that's new to me, I just really struggle to get around to watching things. I don't know, I'm not much of a watcher of stuff. I'm much more of a reader of things. The exception is obviously YouTube, but that feels very different. I do a lot of rewatching the same 5 movies. I would love to tell you that I have like favorite movies in each of these genres, but I don't think that's true. But anyway, I'm doing the tag regardless because it's really fun, and I will get straight into it. The first prompt is Sci Fi, a deck that incorporates imaginative, speculative, and or futuristic concepts. It simply had to be, right? This is the Eldritch Overload, which I feel like I talk about all the freaking time. I also yesterday watched Kelly's VR, in which she referenced the Eldritch Overload and the fact that I talk about it all the time. So, hi Kelly, you were right. This is in fact the deck that I would pick for this prompt. Yeah, because look at it. It's this gorgeous cyberpunk, futuristic, dystopia kind of situation. It's very speculative. It's very futuristic. Also, this is maybe... Also, it's got the D&D compatible module that comes with it in the codex that I've also got, which also feels very like sci-fi. I suppose technically more fantasy, but it's a very sci-fi module, and I do think the like number crunching stats element of D&D, the crunchiness feels more sci-fi. Regardless. Oh god, this I love this Queen of Wands and her cats with the little pauldron, and oh my goodness, have I just noticed this? The cat has a little artificial limb. That's so freaking cool. That matches, it's the front leg that matches the Queen's arm. I have only just clocked that. That's so cool. And then there's all this, like, because it's a cyberpunk kind of theme, we've got all this like wiring and stuff. I don't know if I've seen any, I must have seen cyberpunk movies. I've definitely read cyberpunk books. Okay, prompt number 2 is horror, a deck that scares, frightens, or disturbs you. My nervous system cannot take a lot of horror movies. I've seen a lot of classic horror that kind of wasn't super my thing, but like Alien, which is also sci-fi. Alien is one of my favorite films. There you go. I don't think I really have a scary deck. I grabbed Deviant Moon and Nicoletta Ciccoli. This one's very new in my collection because I feel like a lot of people describe these as quite like creepy and scary. The Deviant Moon especially, it's kind of creepy, and then there's something about the way the figures in the Nicoletta Ciccoli look like dolls that I think some people find a bit creepy. I haven't found that so far with these, but then the deck that I did pick for this prompt is the Jupiter Power Tarot by Six Sad Girls. And I've spoken about this deck and also the element of this deck that I'm about to speak about again. But what feels horror to me is like here, the way it's kind of body horror. The way we've got like plants growing out of people and this kind of transformation that looks quite grotesque and painful in a lot of ways, which incidentally, it's the kind of horror book that I'd read. Like, I don't watch stuff. It's so funny, people will describe the plot of something to me and I'm like, I am bad at watching movies, I'm probably not going to get around to it, but if it was a book, I'd read it tomorrow. Not that reading books is superior to watching movies, that's so not what I'm saying. I'm bad at watching stuff. here we go. Here, the King of Pentacles is kind of like body horror, something growing. It's got that like, I know that parasites and fungi are a recurring theme in a lot of horror stuff, and it has that to it as well. So the Jupiter Power Tarot. Prompt number 3 is Romance, a deck that focuses on relationships or romantic love between people with an overall emotionally satisfying or optimistic tone. Now, I love a good rom-com, especially like a 90s, early 2000s rom-com. No, they have not aged well as a genre, but I do love a good rom-com. It's easy viewing. I know what I'm getting, you know? I know that I'm going to get a happily ever after with a romance, because that's the point of the romance genre. And so I feel more comfortable, confident, something, watching stuff when I know the shape of it. I'm bad at visual media. How many times have I said that? Okay, so this I kind of struggled a little bit with, because in tarot decks, I don't really go for optimistic. I've got a few that are a bit gentler and a bit more caring, but I wouldn't characterize, I don't think, any of my tarot decks as optimistic. So I pulled an oracle. There we are. The Animal Apothecary Oracle, which is one of my favorites. Oh, this little otter guy. It's because it's optimistic. I don't know about emotionally satisfying. It's definitely optimistic. It's this kind of like cute imagery, and most of the key phrases are quite like optimistic. What I think of as traditional oracle kind of phrasing, like you are what you think, abundance. It's a little bit like affirmation-y, and action leads to success, and you know, you've got this kind of a vibe. So that is the Animal Apothecary. But then I had a new deck arrive the other day, which I think aesthetically feels very kind of romantic, in the sense of being like soft and a bit girly and a bit romantic. We've got lots of roses and pearls and like pink, and it's very beautiful. This is the Sistine Tarot, in case I did not say that, which I don't think I did. This is sadly unavailable to purchase. It was a very limited run of availability, but it definitely aesthetically romantic, just in the elements and the colors and all the roses. Prompt number 4 is Thriller, a deck that delivers tension, surprise, and or a sense of impending doom and keeps you at the edge of your seat. Impending doom, not really the vibe I look for in a tarot, but I think that the Crow's Magic is a pretty good fit for this prompt. It's kind of weird. Should we zoom in? Would that be helpful? It's kind of weird. A lot of the keywords, especially, are quite unexpected. I realized that trapped and confined are like the most obvious keywords for the Eight of Swords, but some of them are really interesting. Obviously, none of the ones that are coming up right now, because that's just how these things go. But yeah, this is kind of weird. It's kind of offbeat. It's just a little bit strange. Like I say, a sense of impending doom is not really what I go for in my tarot readings. I don't tend to go for emotionally satisfying and optimistic, but impending doom is too far in the other direction. Like Seven of Swords, we've got cultivate and prolific, which I think is not, I like them. They definitely make me think. Not the traditional keywords, I don't think. But it's a very cool deck. As for thriller movies, no thank you. Again, my nervous system can't handle it, so no thank you. Alright, prompt number 5 is Mystery, a deck that is mysterious, suspenseful, and doesn't reveal answers right away. Reading this deck may feel like solving a puzzle. Such a cool prompt. I hate mystery stories. I don't like reading them. I don't like watching them. I don't know what it is. I find them so boring, specifically the like crime or murder mystery, detective-y, police procedural kind of mysteries. I find them so boring. So I haven't got a mystery movie that I enjoy. That aside, the deck that I've chosen for this prompt is the Lubanko Tarot, because how many times have I talked about this deck and said that I just simply do not know what it's saying right away? And I have to sit with it, and I have to kind of figure out the angle and figure out why it's giving me the cards that it's giving me. And it is a bit like solving a puzzle. I have to work for it with this deck. It is not straightforward. It is not quick and easy answers. It is very much like you've got to sit with it, you've got to take your time, and you've got to kind of earn the reading. Does that make any sense? But yeah, I love this deck, don't get me wrong, but it's not easy and it is a bit more of a mystery. So that is the Lubanko. Prompt number 6 is Action, a deck that features loud, wild, and spectacular imagery that may be overwhelming, but you love it anyways. And for that, change my mind, I'm going with this. This is the Tarot de El Dios de los Tres, and this is loud. It's loud. So loud, wild, and spectacular, I think, is a pretty appropriate description for this deck. It's loud, there's a lot going on, it's bold, it's bright, and it feels very like pow in your face action kind of vibes. Like this definitely feels like a scene from an action movie. I can totally see that for this deck. This is also loud when it's a reading. Like it's loud visually, these colors, these intense like pops of color, but it's also loud in a reading. In contrast to the Lubanko, which you've got to kind of work for, you've got to figure out what it's saying. This deck is so chatty and it is so just going to tell you what it thinks. It's a very loud deck. This is like, you know, when you've had like a couple drinks and the filter's gone and you're just saying what you think. This deck has had a couple drinks. Like it's not impaired, strictly speaking, but it's also completely unfiltered and really quick to speak its mind. So that is my pick for an action prompt. Oh, if it feels like I'm rushing through these prompts, my office is about 1,000,000 degrees and I really, really want to leave. So my last few videos have been pretty long. Hopefully this one is a little bit short and sweet in comparison. Anyhow, prompt number 7 is Fantasy, a deck that transports you to an imaginary world with magic, mystical creatures, or elements of the supernatural that don't exist in the real world. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to show you two, because originally I thought of the Fairies Tarot by Natalie Hertz. And specifically, something about this deck feels like the kind of books I read as a kid. And it's not necessarily the illustration style, but there's just something about what has been captured in these cards, and maybe it's also the illustrated borders. Like it's got obviously fairies, it's got this like magical world and this not everyday world, but something about it feels very fantasy as opposed to another kind of supernatural. It feels like, yeah, like fantasy books. Or I suppose fantasy movies. I can't help. I can't help defaulting to books. That justice is so powerful. So that was my first pick. But then as I was pulling my decks out for this video, I also remembered that I have the Dragon Tarot. And this feels, again, it's a nostalgic kind of fantasy. I grew up on fantasy books, movies, whatever. And this feels very nostalgic. It just feels very otherworldly, I think. It just feels very fantasy. There's something about it that really reminds me of some cartoon fantasy movies I watched as a kid. Something about the illustration style, I think. It just feels really reminiscent of like, I guess, 90s, not Disney, like kind of not great quality fantasy movies. And obviously dragons. Dragons are like my key fantasy creature. Like if I want to read or watch or whatever as something that is of the fantasy genre, I'm like, are there dragons? Because if so, I'm in. I love a dragon. So that is the Dragon Tarot. All right, prompt number 8 is Comedy, a deck that is humorous, amusing, or induces laughter and or a sense of enjoyment. And I simply had to. I had to pick the Bosch for this. This is like not what I was thinking when I was like, okay, what's the deck that makes me laugh? And I'm like, it's not necessarily funny, but it's weird because all the imagery is taken from Hieronymus Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights. Like it's funny. It's weird. But this is my kind of humor, I guess. Some of it is creepy, I will give you that. Some of it's definitely creepy. And some of it is just really funny. Like we have the flower pusher. we've got this woman with a lampshade on her head. She's not, she's looking in the mirror, but it looks like she's got a lampshade on her head, and that makes me laugh. And then some of them are just weird. Is it Garden of Earthly Delights? And then like, what the hell is this fish man doing? It's funny. Maybe that's an insight into my sense of humor. I don't know. I think that's hilarious. What else can I say? So that's my comedy pick, I guess. I don't know what that tells you about me. Maybe just that I'm not a very funny person, but I don't think that's a surprise. All right, prompt number 9 is Drama, a deck that focuses on conflicts in characters' lives that take a more serious tone. And I had to pick that out, Grow Yourself, because like conflict for sure, right? Drama, so not my genre. I don't watch really movies or series that are drama. I don't read drama. It's also kind of boring to me, I'm sorry to say. But yeah, the Outgrow Yourself for drama, because it's, okay, conflict. Pain is growing. The tower's sitting on top for the deck for conflict. Pain is growing. And definitely, I think taking a more serious tone is something that I think about this deck, because I use this as like actual advice that I'm going to take, whereas something like the Animal Apothecary that I showed earlier, this is kind of an affirmation, it's kind of good vibes, whereas like I will actually take the advice of this deck. It's a bit more serious, it's a bit more practical, and also it will call you the fuck out. Can you accept a new beginning? I don't know, can you? What do you secretly wish for? What if I don't want that on a Tuesday morning? Like, it's a little bit dramatic, it's a little bit conflicty. It's also an incredible deck, but I think we know that because I talk about it all the time. So that is the Outgrow Yourself. All right, prompt number 10 is Documentary, a deck that depicts real people, animals, events, or situations that may be educational or informative. And I kind of thought about the Fifth Spirit for this one, but then I thought about the Next World Tarot because it's more scenic. It was basically the only reason. This depicts real people in the sense that it depicts a diversity of people and speaks to the real world issues that we're going through. This is kind of like a post-revolution deck. And like I say, the reason I picked this over the Fifth Spirit, which was my first thought, was because that has kind of pippy minors. This has more scenic minors. I think there's people in every card, and it speaks directly to the absolute shitstorm that is that is our planet right now. So it feels kind of, I don't know if I would necessarily call this deck educational or informative, although I think the ideas in the guidebook can prompt you to like think about real world stuff, but it's informing on the world as we are in it right now. Like, this is a bit of a futuristic or speculative chariot with this woman and her elephants, but it's informed by the world that we're living in. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, that is the Next World Tarot. This is very new to me. I haven't read with this much yet. I have not had the chance, but oh, I think that's good. I'm really looking forward to digging into it. So, all right, prompt number 11 is Animated Film, a deck with bright, expressive, or cartoon-like images that you probably would have enjoyed as a kid and still love as an adult. I am ignoring the second half of this prompt because the deck that I'm choosing is the Feldman Sisters. I don't know, it feels like it's maybe kind of off-piste, but there is something about the art style in this that feels like an animated movie. Like, again, like not a Disney animated movie, like a weird lower budget animated movie from the 90s. I can't be the only one who sees this. Surely. So tell me if you agree. And like, I've got cartoony, do I have cartoony decks? I've kind of been on the hunt for like a real cutesy deck that actually doesn't make me cringe, which has been tricky. Anyhow, this is my pick. This is actually created by graffiti artists, so that's the styling, but it definitely feels like a low budget 90s animated movie in my opinion. So Feldman Sisters. So prompt number 12 is Western, a deck that embodies a spirit of freedom, exploration, and adventure. I don't think I've ever seen a Western movie, at least not like a, I guess more like stereotypical Western. I don't know, it's never interested me. Maybe it's just because I'm British, so like where is the cultural context? Yeah, not a lot of interest in American nationalism, funnily enough. But anyway, I'm going kind of off-piste with this prompt again because I don't think I've seen a Western movie. So I don't currently have a deck for this prompt. I'm including a deck that is on my wish list that I really want because it looks really fun. It's the Cowgirls and Aliens Oracle. It would totally fit this prompt. I obviously wasn't going to buy it just for this tag. That would not have been a sensible thing to do. It looks kind of affirmation-y, but I think I might really get on with it. So Cowgirls and Aliens is on my wish list and is what I would pick for this prompt if I owned it. All right, and finally, prompt number 13 is black and white film, your favorite black and white deck or a vintage deck from another era. And I'm going with the Heart and Hands Tarot, which I feel like I've talked about a fair bit recently, but maybe I've just used it a fair bit recently. And this is a black and white deck, which I historically kind of struggle with black and white decks from a visual perspective. I just struggle to like see what's going on. I have visual processing issues. That's what this is. I don't like movies because I don't like to see things. I struggle with black and white decks because they're hard to visually process. But this deck I really like, and I think it's largely because of the big borders. So if I'm doing like say a 3-card reading, the borders create some separation between the cards, and also it's been drawn in such a way that there's different patterns and there's different amounts of like black and white space that kind of break up the card and make them easier to read visually. Whereas I've got another couple of black and white decks that I don't feel do that, and it's just a little bit harder to see what I'm looking at. I like how this is played with the framing and the borders. It's just a little bit clearer and it makes it a little bit more like accessible for me. So this is my favorite black and white deck. It's also, I've just been really enjoying it. I like reading with this. It's been really spot on in my readings so far. I also really love the court cards in this deck. They're some of my favorites. Like here we go, History Courts. I think they're great. I really love the gothy swords. So that is the final deck that I have to show you. It is the final prompt in this tag, and I am too warm to function in my little office. So I am going to cut this off, leave this here, let you go. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check out Quinn's channel and their original tag if you haven't already seen it. Thank you so much for tagging me also. And let me know what your answers for these prompts would be, because a couple of them really stumped me in ways I did not expect. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed. Give me a like if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.